Okay, so we're ready to start adding some shadow to this little guy. And remember how we said the light was coming down this way. So these areas around the grass are going to be a little darker, as well as under his chin. So what we're going to do is kind of the same process. I'm going back in and getting some wet paint, just slightly more intense in color, but still wet than your first layer. And I'm going to start laying in a second layer of color right over the top of what I've already done. It's actually much easier with your second pass because you've already got one layer on there. So once I get to about this point, I'm grabbing a little water and I'm going to fade that color up. So I want it to be lighter as I come up. And then once I get to around this neck area, I can add a little more paint. Almost once again, like we're kind of molding the shape. So I'm adding in some dark color right underneath his chin neckline. And I grabbed some water, I tapped off, and I'm just blending that color right in using a very lightly damp brush. And same thing here, so grabbing some darker color right into the bottom of this leg. Water, tap, and blend this up. You may have to do it a few times, so I'm continually watering, tapping, because you're grabbing paint onto your brush, so it's kind of like you have to start over quite a few times to kind of get the process going. So I've got some darker color in there, and now I'll start to blend that down. And adding some darker color down here. And I can start to blend that up. And just constantly kind of molding the shapes till you get them where you want them. So some areas I'll come back in and add a little more color where I want it to be a little darker, adding just small bits of color at the time. So adding color in, rinsing, dabbing, and then blending the edge of it with a almost dry brush. And as you can kind of see, it ends up kind of looking like fur. Just due partly in the nature of the paint itself, the way that it dries and the way that it moves, it kind of lends itself to this whole process. So you can see you might have to do the areas a couple of times because you don't want to add like too much color at first. So you kind of want to do it in stages. Work on it to get it just where you want it to be. Okay, so I think he's looking good. He's looking furry. So of course I'm going to let this area dry before I can work on his face. Okay, so all the shadow work has dried, and now we can work on his little face. So same process. I've got a smaller brush, and I'm going to start once again adding shadows first. So this area under his nose and under his lip there, and right under the eye as well. I'm grabbing some water, tapping off a little bit, and I'm going to start shaping and molding that into fur patterns. So constantly grabbing a little water, tapping off, and pulling that darker color into the lighter. And you can see how my brush strokes are kind of like the shape of fur, so especially on the head, trying to give him a little more detail. He's already looking bear-like. And now I'm coming back in with just a light, not very much water, just a little bit to kind of give some wisps to this area down here, some fur pattern. And I'll take some of that right under his chin too. And a little to this V area here. And giving him also a light little brow over his eyes. So a little color there. And we can also go ahead and give him some shadow in his ears. So I'm putting a little dark color in right at the top, rinse, dab, and pull that down. Give him a few little furries at the corners of his ear there. And I would say this guy's looking pretty cute. So we're going to let all of that dry, and then we can start on his little nose.